very disturbing that someone could operate these things and have. I mean, how many? What is the estimated number of them?
That's a great question. I mean, at this point, I'm comfortable making a guess of probably over 800 or 1,000. And how many of those are sightings of the same object? How many of those are individual objects? How many of those are unique objects?
Right.
So it's tough to say, but this isn't just a few objects that people are seeing. And so I can imagine some technologies that will allow traditional UAVs or drones to operate without emitting, right? So they could have a self-contained navigational system, right? Maybe they have their own onboard maps and they're using cameras to map where they are.
So then they would be completely autonomous. You just send them out there and they would have a task and they would go through whatever their task is and navigate via their GPS or whatever tracking system they're using.
Exactly. And then, what is their task, right?
Right.
Is it just to instill panic and fear? Is it because they're sensing something? And if they are sensing something, they would have to be using what's called passive sensors, right? So like a camera system is passive, but if you're shooting a radar out and having it bounce off of something, that's active, right? And that's easier to detect than a passive system. So I could imagine, a fully self-contained autonomous drone system that is doing something potentially with passive sensors that allows it to operate without emissions, which is going to make it harder to track.
If they're doing it at night, if they do have passive systems like some sort of an optical system, wouldn't that be hindered by the low light conditions, or do we have stuff that is able to detect whatever they're looking for at night?
Yeah, depends what they're looking for, but ultimately there is tech. There's electro-optical systems, there's infrared camera systems, not unlike the jets or the systems that we had on my jet. But we were able to detect these objects with infrared when we were flying off the eastern seaboard. There are a number of reports from law enforcement that their infrared systems are not able to pick these objects up. And not just this year, but also the incidents over Langley last year. The pilots that responded to that incident, I've spoken to them, they weren't able to lock these up with their infrared systems either. So they do seem to be exhibiting some type of signature management.
That's interesting. So is the signature management so is it a heat signature that they're giving off? So maybe there's some sort of a cooling mechanism inside of these things? Like how, if they have a propulsion system, so you would imagine it's some sort of an electric engine, right? Because a lot of them are very quiet. That's got to be giving off some kind of heat, right?
Yeah, and that goes to some like very base physics, right? Like we create heat whenever we have, stored energy and we utilize it. So to be able to mitigate that to such a degree that you can't even detect them at all, it's pretty tough. I mean, I can imagine you can reduce your signature. We do it in fighter jets, right? Through kind of just like baffles where we cover the engine essentially to make it harder to see. But to have zero ability to detect or lock onto these objects is not a technology I'm familiar with.
So other than that, are they exhibiting any type of movement that's extraordinary, or their ability to turn angles? Is there anything about them that points to this being superior technology?
It's tough to say. Based on what I've seen just in the public from reports and kind of amateur photographers and witnesses, some of them do seem to be making pretty sharp turns. I wouldn't call them like physics breaking turns, but they don't seem to be operating like a normal aircraft, right? So they're down low. They're making what appear to be pretty high G turns, maybe like 3, 4, 5 G turns at relatively low airspeeds, which is indicative of them having a pretty significant power supply, right? Anytime you turn like that, you're burning energy essentially. So for them to be able to make these high G maneuvers and then remain in the area for another 5 or 6 or 7 hours and still have the battery life or whatever's propelling them, to then go over the ocean to a point where they're untrackable, again, I'm not really familiar with that type of capability either.
I know they've shot at least one of them down, or people have shot. Have you seen the video? It looks like cops are shooting them down with shotguns in New Jersey.
I did see one video like that. I wasn't sure how real it was.
I don't know
hope
if it's really.
Cop.
It seems. I know, because it's like, hey man, when you shoot up, those bullets land somewhere. They can land on people.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard multiple people, representative officials, saying like, "Hey, government needs to step in and start being more clear because people are just going to take matters in their own hands. That's where people get hurt."
Well, there's also been downed ones, right?
I've heard rumors of downed ones, but I haven't.
There's video footage, and there's people driving in their car and they're cop cars are surrounding this thing.
That was a plane.
It was a plane?
I think that was a plane crash.
Oh.
Yeah, I think if that's the one you're referring to, there happened to be a small plane crash.
Can you find that one, Jamie?
Yeah.
Okay. But again, this is the problem with social media, especially with someone like me who's just kind of scrolling for 5 minutes and go, what the fuck? And then, like, you know, my kids ask me something. I got to get out of the house. All right, let me put my phone down. You know, so I haven't done any kind of a deep dive. And I did that purposely just to try to pick your brain. Is this one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely a plane.
Yeah.
Is that the one?
Yeah,
Maybe,
when they were driving by, they're like, "Look, it's a drone shot down."
Right,
But
that might be the one that I saw. I did watch a video. Did you see the video of the plane that crashed in Texas?
I don't know.
Pretty crazy. I'll send you that. But it's unrelated. But
we
a
need to
video
get
crashed in the
Elon
plane.
Musk to have like a special UAP task force within the community notes.
Elon is, look, he's oddly sly about this stuff. He, you know, outwardly dismisses UFOs. You know, he said, well, if they're there, they're very subtle. That's just... I'm like,
One might
okay.
expect that, but okay.
But I just feel like with his contracts with NASA and being involved in SpaceX, he can't talk crazy.
Yeah.
He talks crazy so much about other stuff, but when it's in this, you know, fucking multi-billion-dollar company that he runs, I don't think he can fuck around.
Yeah.
I don't think he can. You know, if it was something that he had no interest in at all in terms of like financial interest and business interest, I'm sure he would be commenting on it. But he's not commenting on it at all, which makes me go, You know, and I don't think he's going to tell me. I don't think I can call him up because I got a big mouth. I think he knows. I'll be out here talking about it. A guy I know.
Can't tell Joe.
Yeah, it's the thing that disturbs me is not just that this is happening. There's so many drones and all these people are seeing them. It's happening for so long and nothing has been done. There's no, you know, they're not scrambling jets to try to meet these things and follow them and track them. They're not shooting them down. They're not. It's just we appear so vulnerable because of this. Mm-hmm. Because if these are ours or if these are people just fucking around and it's not a threat, okay, great. But why is it so prevalent? Like, why are there so many of them? And why have there been nothing that these people that are trying to investigate this have been able to do that's effective to put a stop to this?